we're talking about policing right now, which is one of the measures that should take care of the security situation that we're all currently faced with. We have with us in the studio this morning Kemi Okenyodo, who is the Executive Director, Partners West Africa. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Good morning.
Good morning. Now we have heard from the Acting Inspector General of Police that the President has approved community policing. I mean, we had that about 5 days ago. Now, we were just wondering, if the President has approved community policing, what does this mean?
First, I'll say that community policing had previously been approved by President Obasanjo when he was president of the country in 2007.
As far back as 2007?
As far back as 2007 as the policing philosophy for the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So maybe what we have seen in the past couple of days, I'll say, is reinforcing that community policing is the policing philosophy for the country. And I would say that there have been intervention programs and attempts at piloting and mainstreaming community policing in the police force since '99. So there have been different interventions for the past 16 years. However, part of the challenge that we have seen is that it's been treated as an ad hoc mechanism, whereas it should be a whole of government, a whole of institution approach to policing in the country. So everybody has a role to play. So maybe one can preempt to say that under this administration, they're prepared to take the whole of government approach to ensuring the implementation and the rollout of community policing across the country.
Tell us about what it ought to be. I know that sometime in 2012, we paid a visit to the United States where we went to study their policing system. I think we looked at a number of states there, New York, Florida, and I think even the capital, Washington, D.C., to see just what it was like there. But they have, you know, state policing is definitely what they've adopted. Community policing is another level. Tell us what community policing entails or should entail here in Nigeria.
First, I'll say community policing is not state policing. Community policing is having a problem-solving approach to the issues that can cause insecurity within a geopolitical space. So, for example, it should involve community engagement because you cannot identify all the issues outside the community themselves that are part of the process. It should involve accountability, and accountability means you must be responsive and you must be answerable to the community and also the different layers of accountability processes within the country. It involves proactive communication. Communication is a key element of community policing. The other leg of it that brings all of these three together is that when you have community engagement, you have proactive community engagement, you're proactive in identifying issues that could cause insecurity, you're accountable to the people that you are serving, and you communicate effectively. Communication is a two-way traffic. You most likely would get information that can be processed that would feed into intelligence.
So tell us. You say community policing is not state policing.
No, it's not.
There are people who every time they talk about security problems facing Nigeria and talk about restructuring, one of the first things that comes to the fore is state police. Can community policing work within the current framework that we have?
Yes, it can. It can work within the current framework that we have when certain things are put into place. So, for example, you have devolution of responsibilities and authority to the state commissioners of police, which is there already. It's a matter of the state CPs being proactive and also feeling empowered to engage with all the stakeholders within their state.
You don't think they feel empowered enough as it is?
I think we all would agree that our policing space is heavily political. So there is the element of political high-handedness. Pardon my use of word, but that's the only way I can term it, where you have political issues overshadowing operational issues.
By political, you mean what?
I mean,
so that I'm not misinterpreting you.
Political issues now would mean the activities of the politicians and the framework and how it can overshadow operational discretion. So in Nigeria, for example, I would say that, let me use, I'm looking at the state I can use as an example. Let me use Plateau State as a good example. In Plateau, whoever it is that is posted to Plateau as CP, either a Christian or Muslim, if there are crises in Plateau, no matter how good intentioned the person is, one side would claim that the CP was biased because of our ethno-religious perennial fault lines. So it would not be seen as an objective. Whatever actions he takes he or she takes, might not be seen as being objective. One school would say it was biased against him or her. Depending on the inclination and the leaning of the governor, you could see the governor also leaning towards a group. So you see a scenario where the police are not, I would say, not properly empowered and operationally independent to be able to carry out their work the way it ought to. And that's where the accountability comes into it. So when you give the person the space to carry out his or her task, then you hold the person accountable to certain criteria. And you can now judge independently, irrespective of our fault lines. Our fault lines are some of the things that make it difficult to properly secure this nation. So you find, apart from the police, even the military constantly looking across over their shoulders and wanting to judge, I would say, second-guessing themselves. If I do this, would it be termed as being a Hausa person? Would it be termed as being a Yoruba person? Would it be termed as being a Christian? Would it be termed as being a Muslim? Whereas that ought not to play out.
So tell us, in a state like Plateau State, how will community policing, which you suggest, how will it work, especially in a place where things could be interpreted as being biased along ethnic and religious lines?
So you have different layers, and that's where the devolution comes into it. At the community level, one of the things that have been advocated for are community safety partnership forums. Community safety partnership forums brings the ordinary people together to identify, to talk about their challenges and what their insecurity issues are. And at that meeting, you have representatives. It should really be an open meeting. Anybody should be able to participate.
Who convenes that meeting?
That meeting ought to be convened by the community, inviting the police.
I see.
Yeah, and the police sit in at that meeting, and that's where I think the issue of traditional rulers come into this, because they have a natural convening platform, and issues relating to security, safety, economy, whatever you call it, are discussed during that platform. And when these issues are being discussed, the police are meant to be part of it. The police do not run the community safety partnership forums. They are part of it. And the issues identified are then tabled down, and they're looked at and mainstreamed to, maybe you now group them into clusters, and then together you identify what the possible solutions would be. It's not for the police to go back and think out what the solutions should be. Together you identify what the possible solutions should be, and then identify who are going to, do we need to ensure the solutions are carried out. I'll give an example. Some years back, when I was still at Clean, and we piloted community safety partnership forums in Lagos State. If you remember, there used to be this hotel around Ikorodu Road, Hotel Bobby at Unipan, when one of the forums held, and the people within the community raised that the police are constantly raiding them because of criminal activities are along that area. But however, the criminal hideout is in this rundown hotel, and they don't have a control over it. The police also don't have a control over it. So what they did jointly was for the police to write to the estate of Bobby Benson to say, you either put this hotel up in good order and it's being utilized, or it's pulled down, because it is a threat to safety in that environment. I think over time the hotel has been pulled down. You see that when some of these issues come up and it's discussed, a lot of times the solutions are not in the hands of the police. The solutions are in the hands of other arms of government or society. And they need to take a step in addressing it. Another example I'll give you is the driving along Games Village, Galadimawa, going towards Lokogoma. We know and we hear every day that there's a high rate of criminality there. What have the police tried to do? They've tried to deploy men along that route.
Yeah, we also noticed that, you know, some policemen were killed
Yes.
at the Galadimawa roundabout sometime last year.
And then you ask, is that place properly lit? The answer is no. A fast and easy solution would be to put up street lights along that axis. That's not the responsibility of the police. That's the responsibility of the FCT administration. So you see certain, you know, I mean, that's the whole idea of community policing. That's why I said it's a whole of government approach.